I needed somewhere to turn to where I could bounce ideas off of someone in a confidential manner, find somebody that I could even vent to if need be, and a mentor that I could work with to be able to make organizational cultural change without the threat of being undermined or those sort of things. So Clay provided that value of having somebody that I could work through challenging issues with without exposing my flank necessarily, or exposing the organization to outside discussions or undermined conversations as a significant change in the organization needed to take place. Clay and I spent a lot of time talking about what language would resonate with the entire organization that would help take us from where we were to a much higher level. And so Clay provided this language about serving others and building trust and respect and mutual respect among one another, and a lot of the language that we were able to communicate out through various methods, both Clay speaking to our organization through YouTube videos and other means. We were able to use that language, and that language continues to be a part of the everyday discussion and what we're wanting to drive our culture to be in the organization. Clay was very good about keeping me on task and making sure that we had a plan in place and that we worked through that plan step by step. And I was at times wanting to go faster, but Clay was very good about making sure we maintained the pace of, I was ready to move step 1, step 2, step 3 very quickly, but Clay was very deliberate in making sure that we accomplished all that we could in step 1 before moving to step 2, making sure that we have everybody on board before we start pushing away from the dock. We talked a lot of times about getting everybody on the boat before we head to our destination, and I was ready to push away from the dock and move quickly to our destination once we had kind of started the ball rolling. I was ready to move, and Clay was very good about making sure that we got everybody that we possibly could onto the boat before we headed to that destination. You know, as I met Clay and we worked through a process together and began to develop the organization, you know, I had all the confidence based on some other testimonials that I had input on before that, but I could really see as we worked through the process that Clay had been down this road before. The insight and the information from experiences he has had and other organizations he has worked with, it didn't feel like we were plowing new ground. Every conversation we had, there was a reference to a situation in the past that he had been down this path. So I knew he wasn't making this up as we went along. He hadn't read this in a book. This is something that he'd actually lived. He'd actually led other cultural changes, led other organizations to successful cultural changes, and so it gave me a lot of confidence as we walked this path together that he'd already been down this path before. I thought it was real important that Clay and I met on a weekly basis as we kind of went through this organizational change, because I may come in from one week to the next with really discouraged on a major issue that has occurred from one week to the next, and Clay had a unique ability to be able to keep us on focus and keep us on task even when I needed just someone to vent to, and Clay acted as that mentor that I could vent to, but then he was always very encouraging and got us back on task, kept us on time frame, and always tried to make sure that we were moving to the next step of the plan and moving the organization in a positive direction. So there was often times when I would come into the office and I was discouraged, and Clay was right there to listen to what was discouraging me, but then put that positive spin on it. And I would leave the session with Clay with a level of optimism that, hey, we can do this. Keep our eye on he would refocus us on the big picture, and the purpose that we were really here for was to change that organizational culture and drive us to these higher levels of success. And so I may come in discouraged, but Clay had a great way of refocusing and making sure that I left encouraged after every time we got to meet. I feel like one of the biggest benefits of having Clay come to my organization was having someone with that outside expertise, the outside ability to come into an organization and show their confidence and their ability to display that they've been down this before. Team building, organizational development, changing the culture in an organization. It quickly resonated with all of my members that he'd been down this path before. And so bringing in an outside expert and could kind of look at where we'd been and look at where we wanted to go, it was very easy for him to have those hard conversations and bring up challenging topics that would have maybe been difficult for me or left a bad taste in the mouth of some of my members towards me, or some dissatisfaction towards me. Clay coming in was able to have those hard conversations and drive that conversation without me having to bear that all by myself. I had several people come up to me and say one of the smartest moves I made was bringing in an outside expert to talk about team building and organizational development and some of the challenges that we had in our culture. Bringing in Clay, they were able to see that the value of having that outside expert come into the organization. It reinforced what I was saying, and every time I would present to the organization and have a discussion with them, Clay was right there to then reiterate and reinforce the conversations that I was having in his own language that brought some of the technical expertise of leadership development that he brought to the table, really to reinforce some of the same things I was trying to say and what we were trying to accomplish together. If your organization is struggling in any way, I would highly encourage you to retain the services of Clay Staires. He did outstanding things for my organization, team building, cultural change, and so I would highly encourage you to retain his services and let him take your organization to new levels.